I have a friend who actually ended up having surgery on his anus so that it could be enlarged and he could accommodate his oversized partner's dick. Hi, this is Mike Balaban. Welcome to another episode of BAMMER Talks. Today I'd like to take a crack, pun intended, at covering the whole idea of tops versus bottoms when it comes to men having penetrative or anal sex. You know, this is an issue that has been written about for centuries, that has bothered a lot of people both in the gay community and outside, for the symbolic meaning of what it's like to be a top or a bottom. And frankly, I hope and believe we are in an era where that significance is starting to dissipate. For many, many centuries, it's always been perceived that if you are the penetrator, the active partner in anal sex, that there's a more masculine, more strength involved in that role. That if you are the taker, the receptive or passive partner in sex, that you might be weaker or less manly. And when you go to some countries that are very macho or very conservative, or where, you know, women's rights aren't honored and gay rights are certainly not honored, that still persists, the belief that you can be a man and you're not really queer if you're giving it to another man. But if you dare to take someone's dick up your butt, that suddenly you are suspect and you are less of a man. You're a woman, or worse than a woman. Fortunately, as we've moved on in time and being gay and being a woman, has had more value in social terms. That kind of outdated viewpoint has grown less and less popular, at least in more advanced countries like the United States, Europe, etc. So how does one determine if one's a top or a bottom, or versatile, meaning that you engage in both roles, in both positions? Well, that's not an easy answer, and it depends on the individual. When you're first coming out, you might naturally gravitate to one or another role. If you don't, you try both. Sometimes guys, are really uncomfortable being the receptive partner. There's a kind of art to learning how to take another man's penis in your ass. It involves relaxation and adjustment till you get to the point where that organ massages the prostate of the passive partner and the pleasure becomes immense. So if you can reach that point, bottoming can be amazingly pleasurable. For some people, the idea of being a bottom is anathema, and they're not willing to try it. For other people, there are physical limitations. They can't relax and therefore never get to the point of enjoying the pleasure, or there are physical limitations. I have a friend who actually ended up having surgery on his anus so that it could be enlarged and he could accommodate his oversized partner's dick. That was 25 years ago. They're married together with kids. So, there are people who must fall in one category or another. There are others who constitutionally experiment and determine one is more comfortable. And there are a whole bunch of people that fall in the middle and like both. There's a concept known as flip fucking, where you penetrate someone and then the next time you get penetrated, or vice versa. Ideally, that's the most, I think, appealing position to be in, because you get to enjoy both pleasures, but not everybody is capable like that. So talking about myself, when I came out in the 70s, in my 20s, I was really lacking in confidence. I felt kind of emotionally and psychologically needy, and wasn't certain exactly what to do. And when I did try to penetrate someone else the first time, I hurt him because I was so enthusiastic. I wasn't mindful that there could be pain involved. So I found myself gravitating more and more to the role of being a bottom. And I emotionally and psychologically felt like a bottom because I really valued the strength and the masculinity and the certainty that my top partner was providing me while penetrating me and massaging my prostate. So the combination of the physical pleasure, which was extreme, and the psychological fulfillment that I got out of that role pretty much kept me in the position of being a bottom for most of the 70s and 80s when I was out. Then along came AIDS and pushed all of us into a mode of having much less sex, only very carefully, while wearing condoms, and essentially minimizing how much anal penetration we were engaged in because of the risk that it could give us AIDS. So I went virtually a decade from the early mid-80s until the early mid-90s where I really wasn't fucking much at all or being fucked much at all. And when that period ended and AIDS became less of a threat, or at least a more manageable disease because of the introduction of protease inhibitors into the medical lexicon, by that point, when I went back to the fucking arena, so to speak, I was not able to get the same kind of pleasure that I did physically. And psychologically, I no longer felt passive, receptive, needing the strength of my partner. If anything, my success in the business world, my therapy that helped me figure out who I was, gave me a feeling of more strength and certainty of my own, which would ostensibly put me in the camp of being a top. The only problem, and this is my own specific limitation, is that I'm demisexual. And for me to be aroused by a partner, I have to feel a connection, an emotional significance to that interaction. And therefore, if I met somebody on the spur of the moment and they wanted me to penetrate them, I probably can't because I'm not going to be aroused because I don't feel anything towards them. So I basically am a top primarily when I'm involved with a partner who I care about, who I love. And that topping for me is a gift that I am giving the person I care about. I don't bottom as much because it doesn't give me as much pleasure, but when I have a partner that enjoys topping, I'm more than happy to oblige and I can get some pleasure out of it as well. Just not the same intense and excruciating pleasure that I did in my 20s. So this is to both explain that whatever role you find yourself in evolves naturally out of how you feel physically and psychologically when engaging in the activity of having a male partner do something to you or you do something to them. And very importantly, that preference may change over time as it did with me, or may stay the same the whole rest of your life. And then finally, an issue which I haven't even raised, there is a fairly new category, at least the recognition of it and the naming of it is new, and that is men who consider themselves sides. By being a side, you are essentially saying, I'm not a top and I'm not a bottom. I'm on my side. I don't really want to expose my butt to anybody else penetrating it, and I don't really want to penetrate their butt. I'm not interested in, I get no pleasure from anal penetration of another partner or of myself. I don't want to engage in anal sex. Now, there are a lot of young gay men in particular who don't consider sexual activity to have occurred unless you have anal sex, which I find amazing. To me, kissing is sex. Jerking off is sex. 69, rimming, anything involving a sexual contact, whether or not there's an orgasm, is sexual and therefore sex. But in any event, there are lots and lots of people who just never want to engage in anal sex, and that's perfectly fine. You just need to make sure that you find another partner for whom that works, and vice versa. So this is my take on it. You will determine over a period of time through experimentation with partners or a partner which of those activities you prefer, if you are one or the other or both or neither, and your preference may in fact evolve over time as circumstances in your life, as your self-confidence, and as your physical being adjust. So the whole idea would be to place as little significance as possible on the naming of what role you may play in a given moment or in a given relationship, and to just enjoy the physical and hopefully emotional pleasure that stems from it. I hope this has been very clear. I really would enjoy having some comments from people who watch this. It interests me when I'm able to gauge back and forth. Tell me if you agree with this viewpoint about penetration, or if you have a different experience. Let's talk about this a little bit more, and I appreciate you for joining in. Thank you very much. Stay tuned for our next episode of BAMMER Talks or BAMMER Tales. This has been Mike Balaban. Thank you. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube page and sign up for notifications of future upcoming episodes. You can also be part of the BAMMER community by going to my Instagram page at BAMMER47, to follow me on our podcast episode series, BAMMER and Me, or going to our website, BAMMER.co, with stories submitted by LGBTQ people around the world. Thanks again. See you soon. Bye.